All right, everybody, what is up? Hello, and welcome to the first discussion for the Loki TV show. Again, like always, we are having this discussion right after viewing the episode. And for us, we're in the central time zone, so that's around 2 a.m. for us. So it is currently 3 in the morning. And I promise I'm going to do something about having a better presentation of the the stream itself. So I do stream this live at twitch.tv/bash, and this is just kind of like shoddily put together, just because I didn't plan ahead and I should have. So I'll try to work on it throughout the next week and make it better, just presentation wise. But I am joined here by Broly. Say what's up, Broly.
Yo, what up?
Unfortunately, if you guys have seen our discussion for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we had Goss with us, discussing and watching the episode and all that stuff. But he is in the middle of like a move, a really big move, like out of state move, and so he said he's probably not going to be at the ready with his setup and being able to watch this late at night and stuff like that. So. Hopefully we get him back in future discussions. But for now, it's just me and Broly kicking it off, and we will get his insight after the fact. But I already got some of the chat. What's up, man? How's it going? This is some bullshit. I got work tomorrow. I just wanted to stop by and say hi. Hey, I appreciate you swinging by. Yeah, I am very excited to get into this. But yeah, thank you for checking out the video, and let's go ahead and start off with the discussion for Loki episode 1. Right off the bat, I guess I just kind of want to get your Broly. Tell me, what was your what do you want out of this? Like, how did you feel when they announced the Loki show, and what was your expectations going into this? Try to disregard what we've learned in this episode for now.
Yeah, I don't know. When they announced the show, I mean, the Loki's a very popular figure, a very popular villain. I feel like we got a lot out of him, but he did, spoiler alert, he did, die in the beginning of Infinity War. And it was kind of like one of those things where you kind of saw like the full development arc. He was a bad guy, he was mischief, he wanted to rule, and then he ended up becoming like an anti-hero, right? Where he kind of, was there protecting what left of Asgard with his brother against Thanos. And so, and then we saw in Endgame his trip with in the Tesseract. And I guess it was very interesting because, what you have to understand is those two characters are very different.
Yeah.
That one already reached his road and one is kind of starting. So I'm very interested in what the show is going to bring out, because obviously it's going to be a lot with the multiverse. Obviously it has a lot to do with the things that are going on now in Phase 4. So I'm guessing I'm really interested in how he's going to be tied into all of this. And obviously just the character himself is very interesting by itself, because you just don't know how the direction, what direction he could be innocent one moment and then bad the next. So it's very interesting to see this character in a series. So that's what's keeping me very intrigued in this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat where I love Loki as a character. It's not when he first got introduced in Thor 1. It was just that part of my fandom with the MCU. I wasn't really a Thor fan. Yeah, Thor was kind of in the same ballpark for me as like Aquaman, where it's like a character that's part of the big team, but I just never really had interest because it's so overly exaggerated. Like, I'm a Norse god, and Aquaman also was always like a very exaggerated, I'm an Atlantean, So it never really struck a chord with me as like I wasn't like a super fan. But obviously, with the direction of Thor in the MCU, they made him fucking amazing and super hype. And so When they introduced Loki, it was the same thing. I wasn't very familiar, and I didn't follow along with that sort of part of the Marvel universe. And I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that when it comes to this show and all the things that they're going to be introducing in this show, I'm definitely out of my league here. I'm a Marvel fan, and when it comes to the comics, you know, I've seen and read a lot of like the more mainstream stuff. So as we get more, that's why I'm really excited for this phase, is because we're getting into like the more in-depth and like more niche sections of the Marvel universe with its characters and its like setting and like the places we get to explore and visit. It's not, you know, oh, we're in Brooklyn, oh, we're, you know, blah blah. Like, we're actually going to be doing a lot of, and that's what was cool about the Guardian movies too, was that we get to learn a lot about, you know, about space and the other part of the world, not just Earth. And so yeah, when they announced the Loki series, I was definitely very excited for it, and Tom Hiddleston does a great job as a character. And yeah, Loki really got to shine on his own, and he has his own fandom. And that's just what I love so much about the MCU, is that they make names that weren't exactly like huge names in the comics. They make them stand out even more, and they give them so much more character, I feel. But yeah, I guess we can jump into it, and I guess first things first. The episode starts off with we get the I won't say like super reused footage, but we get the footage of Endgame. That was the footage of the first Avengers movie, where they had just beat Loki. They're taking him downstairs. Hulk burst. Like it starts off Avengers 1 footage, and then it goes into Endgame footage where Loki gets the Tesseract that's right by his feet and takes off. And I love that the episode starts off perfectly with like, this is what you guys want to know. Where did Loki go? All right, here's where he went. And like, he gets teleported to some part of the world. I think, wait, if I'm not mistaken, the subtitle said Malaysia or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, right? Malaysia.
Yeah. So he got teleported, and like within seconds, he starts trying to command these people who approach him, and they're like, "Oh, why did you come here? Why are you in our land?" But then we see this orange like door frame appear out of nowhere, and we've got these like soldiers walking out, or just maybe not soldiers, but just like this unit, this like team of TVA members. And they basically approach Loki saying like, hey, you're messing with the timeline, we're gonna take you in. He says like, oh, you're underestimating me. And then the main guard lady, she ends up smacking him with this like slow-mo stick is what I thought it was. Basically just it hits him and it makes him go into slow motion time-wise, but he still feels the pain in real time, which was like super extra. And so we can go into this scene a little bit, but for me, right out the gate, I gotta say, I was a little put off by how terrible the line delivery was of this lady. Like, her lines in this one part of the show was so bad. Like, it just felt, I don't know, it just stuck out to me really hard, and I was like, why is she talking like...
What line? What do you mean?
Like, no, the way she was just like, oh, we are here to stop you, and, you know, are you resisting, or are you come quietly? And, like, Loki's just like, I think you're the one that's...
I kind of figured that she's kind of like, okay, this guy thinks he's all that, he has no power, like, kind of like taunting him in a way.
No, I definitely agree that was the tone of it all, but it just kind of felt like the delivery wasn't exactly my favorite. That was not a good first impression for me.
I mean, I wasn't a fan of the character. I mean, I think she was overused. Like, I didn't like, that's something that I kind of just didn't get, is like, I don't know, you know, you could tell from like throughout the episode, she's just kind of like, dude, let's just put him out of his misery. And you know, it didn't go that way, but she kind of was on screen a little too long for a character that we don't know if she's gonna stick around or not.
Well, I know on the poster itself, the promotional poster for Loki, she's on there. Like, it's her and also the main judge lady from later in the episode. They're on there, so We might be seeing more of them. The guard might be one of those like sort of roles where it's like I'm gonna keep showing up and wanting to put an end to this sort of charade that
Right.
the Owen Wilson character is trying to go get done.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that opening scene happens. They ended up taking Loki almost instantly. So he goes from being captured by the Avengers to escaping with the Tesseract and then being captured by TVA. And so TVA, what was it? It was called. What was it called again?
It was time variance authority, I think.
Uh huh. So basically, we end up finding out that we have this organization or this sort of like overseeing uh I guess like outposts of the sacred timeline. And so we get thrown a bunch of terminology here. We get thrown.
Basically, we get thrown like they put on this kind of like presentation, and it's this cartoon, and basically they talk about like how the Time Lords, timekeepers, there's three of them. They overlook the sacred timeline, and basically, if anybody leaves their normal path, TVA comes in, takes them, picks them up, and then tries to put them back in the path that they're supposed to, right? So that they don't really affect the sacred timeline.
Yeah.
And they pick them up, they set them in front of a judge, and the judge, sees how, if they're
Mhm.
guilty or not, and then kind of goes on, that's how the process works.
Yeah, we get like a small little bit of padding in this part of the show where it's a lot of walking, a lot of questioning, a lot of like just setting up the plot, I guess, in a way, because
Mm.
we get scenes where he is trying to run away and then they have a collar on him that brings him back to where he was a couple seconds ago, and that's how they're kind of keeping him on a leash. We get scenes where they take the Tesseract and the guy behind the desk is like, I don't know what this is. They're kind of like these people were created by the timekeepers, and basically their whole life and their job is being in this spot, controlling the sacred timeline and making sure it runs properly. And so yeah, it's a huge kind of like wait a second, because in our, at least me personally, I feel like it's been kind of force fed into my brain from like years and years of like video games and anime and all this stuff that like, oh, you can push past your limits, you can change your fate, you can drive the course of your own future. And so what we're getting in this setting now is basically everything that's ever happened ever is supposed to happen that way, no matter what. And
Mm.
it's kind of like a lot to take in, because there's so many things that kind of get waved away in this world, because the TVA area essentially is it nulls everybody's powers. Like it base there's nothing magical or nothing extraordinary happens in this place because it's being controlled. So Loki can't use any of his powers. The Tesseract, and later on, we'll talk about it, but some things in this episode don't have any power in them. And so it's like very like, whoa, this is taking me for a loop here, because I could put Wanda in this room and she wouldn't do anything. So it's like um super interesting.
It's supposed to be like an area where, okay, no superpowers kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like a place where you're stripped of everything because the laws that you follow in your universe or your timeline don't apply here.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter how strong you are, how magical you are, or whatever. It doesn't matter because the TVA kind of rules all, right? It's the grandiose of all, um, overlookers of the timeline.
Yeah.
So you're not able to, that's kind of like pushed at us. We get one scene where literally the Infinity Stones are in a Destroyer, and
Yeah.
they're just kind of
And
like,
there's multiple of the same stone too.
right,
We
like,
have Josh M85 here in the chat that says, in regards to the nullification of powers,
mm,
and this area being a higher area, they say that it makes it great, and it's basically like the neutralizer. for the powers, which is yeah, it's totally true. And yeah, so there's a certain point in the episode where Loki. I mean, we're getting kind of far ahead, so we'll touch on that in a little bit. But we do end up seeing some Infinity Stones here. But before we get to that part, we do, so like I was saying, we do have a little bit of a, I don't want to say like padding, but just more of world building and kind of explaining what's happening with Loki going through the procedure of seeing a judge. So we get the part where his clothes get like evaporated by this robot, and then he gets thrown into this jumpsuit where he's in front of like it's like one of those like security measure detectors in like malls and stuff. And I love that scene. It was so funny. He's just like, the man there is like, oh, walk through. Have you ever been? Are you a robot or have any sort of like robot entity in you? And he was just like, oh, do people usually not know if they're robots? The guy is just like, he's being very like, oh, I've heard this so many times. Like, please walk through, sir. And we get this funny scene where Loki's like, he's super hesitant to walk through because he's like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure I'm not a robot, but it was definitely funny, and yeah, I think that it definitely plays into what you mentioned earlier about Loki as a character, where it's very he can be funny and silly and a little bit like cynical at times, but he is, you never really know where you stand with him, and you never know when he's gonna stab you in the back. So it's like, it's funny to see these moments of him where he's being silly, and that's just MCU humor in general. But yeah, we end up going through these steps where he finally gets to see a judge, and we get the first. I think it was the first look, but we get the first look of what they call. Did they say purging?
For what?
Whenever with the baton stick, where the guy's like, oh, I was trying to get a ticket. The guy didn't give me a ticket, but he actually did.
I think it's like resetting. I think that's what they're doing. They're resetting them.
Gotcha. Yeah, they had some term. I think it was purging, but it was something with like a PR or PU start. But essentially they have the ability to reset people, and so we even get like a little vial in the when they take Loki, where it resets that whole section. So like the crash landing that he did, the people who saw him, it's a little bit of like a Men in Black sort of situation, where it's like they wipe that whole experience.
They kind of reset to what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and so super interesting uses of time in this episode, and yeah, those little vials, I'm guessing, are going to become something of importance later, because it's just one of those things where, yeah, you stabbed me, you cut my arm off, I got shot by something, I just hit this reset thing, and now I'm back to good, back to normal.
Definitely. Well, I forget because there is a second thing going on. We get introduced to Owen Wilson's character, Mobius.
Yeah, Mobius is Owen Wilson.
And he works with TVA, and he's on this case where someone is killing their patrolmen, right? They call it the Minutemen.
Yeah, the Minutemen.
And so they're at this church, and it's a French church, and they come across this little girl or little kid, and he asks the kid, like, what happened? Who was it? And he points at this glass that looks like the devil. So we're kind of like led to believe that this is like the villain, or this is the one starting all this. And they kind of like look at the crime scene, and they see it was a bunch of stab wounds. And I think they said the charge went off. I'm not 100% sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the little time capsule thing is said that it went off. So I don't know if whoever's doing this is collecting them or not. But we kind of get to see that, at the end. But
yeah, I think something of note for this scene that we get introduced to Mobius, which is Owen Wilson's character, is that we have a little girl that shows up, and he draws a little stick figure on his thing to kind of make that, like, connection of like, oh, I'm a nice guy, I'm just trying to talk to you. and we get we get a moment where he asks her like, "Oh, who did this? You know what happened here?" And she points to the stained glass of a red devil-looking character. It's a mural of a devil, and straight away in my head, I'm like, Mephisto's back, baby. Like, it's time once again for the MCU fandom to think that Mephisto is a part of this in some way or another. And I just think that's hilarious because of after everything in WandaVision, it's just funny. But yeah, she ends up giving him a little canister of I guess it's either chewing gum or blue licorice candy or something. But her teeth or her mouth is a little stained blue, and she hands him a little case that says kablooey, which might mean something more. He says to run some tests on it, which they mention, oh, nothing's gonna come up, and he's like, yeah, just go for it. And so, what'd you think of Owen Wilson in this episode as a whole? We don't have to go into like later on. We can talk more about him, but just in first impressions, what do you think?
I mean, very Owen Wilson, like in all his roles. Very kind of standoffish. Like very like, hey, whoa, relax. Like he kind of knows he's in charge of things, but he also is trying to get through to Loki when he has his interactions with him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's fine. I just don't treat him anything kind of different. Like, I don't, like if you were to ask me, oh, what do you think of, I don't know, right? Like Benedict Cumberbatch, right? Like in the MCU, he's literally Doctor Strange, right? So there's a difference between him and in other roles. And then, Benedict Cumberbatch in this, right? He's Doctor Strange. It's different with Owen Wilson. Well, like, Owen Wilson's literally, like, playing Owen Wilson, kind of, right? Like, obviously,
yeah, a little bit.
And he's, he has this thing, but he hasn't, he hasn't done anything, like, other than know the lore, other than world building. He hasn't really done anything that's kind of like, oh, this is MCU. Right, this is a Marvel character. Like, that's what I don't.
I mean, I think for me to interject, there's two things that go through my mind with his introduction and how things play out on the show. But the first one I want to go into is, I mean, I like Owen Wilson as an actor. I've enjoyed a lot of his movies growing up, and I do agree he definitely has this sort of like feel and charisma about him that is just, oh, it's Owen Wilson. This is how Owen Wilson acts, and so. I don't think it's bad in this sense because I do still, even though it's Owen Wilson and I know how he acts and he still has that same vibe, he does come off as like because he said his role in this episode and basically his job is to secure and stop very dangerous variants. He does have a little spat with Loki where he's talking to him and he's like, oh, I deal with stopping very dangerous variants. And Loki's just like me, and he's like, oh no, you're like a pussycat compared to the ones that I go after. And so he did convey that sort of like confidence, and he does have a little bit more when it comes to the idea of like a detective who's a little bit better than the other detectives. Like, he has that vibe. So I think he really nailed that in that sense, where he goes off of a hunch. He goes off of like, I'm gonna work a little harder than what my job needs me to.
Which I think is very interesting that he says that when we go to the end of this.
Yeah, for sure.
He says that.
Yeah. We don't have to get there yet, but yeah.
I do think that's kind of it's very it doesn't make sense.
I'm sure that's like purposely set there to not make sense, sort of like kind of set the tone. But then it also could work out in the way where he says that to Loki just to gauge him further in his interview.
I could see that,
But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to say about Owen Wilson's character was, isn't it funny how we keep getting these sort of like these experienced, witty, like catalyst of characters to help us understand what's happening around us, but they're always this like middle-aged white man. So like we had Agent Coulson, who was like that sort of role for like filling in a certain character on how this is how things work here, you know.
Yeah.
And then for same thing with WandaVision with what was the name of that the evil dude again? Heyman, or what was his name?
Yeah, yeah.
The main bad guy. Oh, not the main bad guy, but the guy from the sword. That from WandaVision. He was also like, oh, this is how we do them. We're doing like space stuff now and all blah blah blah. And then we also got Owen Wilson in this, and then we got like Martin. What's that? The guy who played Bilbo, Martin something. Martin Freeman, I think.
Yeah, Mark Freeman. Yeah.
Martin Freeman. He was like that with the whole in the Winter Soldier movie, and then also in Wakanda he was like he went with them to Wakanda. And so like it's just funny how they use these characters as sort of like, hey, this is your connection as a viewer to learn about this place because we have this expert, or like we have this person who's experiencing it with you. And so he definitely played that role really well for this scenario, and especially in this one because we do, like I said, we do get a lot of like terminology. We get a lot of we got like within the first like 20 minutes of the episode or something, we got so much that basically sets up a lot. Like they talk about when we were having that thing with the Miss Minute or whatever. She was talking about the multi universal like timeline split. She even says the word madness, so that's definitely leading up to what we know with Doctor Strange. She mentions Nexus events, so they're setting up a lot of stuff.
Beings, stuff like that.
Yeah, they're setting up so many things, like Secret Invasion, definitely Secret Wars could come out of this, and I don't know. It's another one of those things where this show is definitely gonna open up a lot.
Well, I definitely think going back to when you asked me what do you think you're gonna get out of this show, I definitely see this going forward being something of a main point in the Multiverse of Madness movie. I can see it happening just because Doctor Strange has a little bit of interaction with Loki before, and I can see Loki doing something like that. And that's what I mean is that like I look at the character and then I go back to the end of Thor 2. Like that literally could happen to where you think he does the sacrifice play, yet he's the one sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
Right, like that's what I'm expecting.
Uh-huh.
So,
but I definitely think like there's still plenty of episode to talk about. But I like my feelings overall so far is for a pilot episode, for things to get kicked off. I think it definitely captured me in a way where I've got a lot of questions and I'm really interested on how exactly are they gonna have this Loki adventure play out. But yeah, we got Josh M in the chat saying that we gotta have that person to water it down, mellow it out. Yeah, that's for sure. Those type of characters are there for that. He says, I mean, Loki is the fault of the multi. Well, that's what's interesting, and we'll get into that as soon as we get towards more of the end of the discussion. But yeah, Loki is kind of at this point where, I mean, I thought it was really interesting that they gave this backstory on the multiverses fought each other, causing there to be one timeline, and so it's kind of like that already has me, very interested on what they are gonna do with, Secret Wars in the future, because we know that's a project, and there's just so much that time, like I don't know, it's one of those tricky things where since time is coming into play, it's gonna be tricky to justify everything. It's also gonna be tricky with sort of like keeping everything coherent, and then also not ruining other things that could be happening where they'll be like, oh well, where was the TVA during that time, stuff like that. And so I'm glad there's a certain point in this episode where they kind of say the TVA didn't intervene with the Avengers jumping through time because that was supposed to happen.
I mean, it's just I don't like this subject. I don't like time. I don't like it. I don't mind that they mess with it. I don't mind that it plays a role here and there. I don't like I don't mind all that. What I mind is it being a central focus, because now it's kind of like, okay, so Thanos won in Infinity War, and y'all were okay with that.
Uh-huh.
Like half the universe snapped, and you were okay with that? Is it because you knew the Avengers were gonna go back in time and fix it,
Yeah.
or what? Right? You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like one of those things where if shit went bad, are we expecting the TVA to to go in there? You know what I mean? Like, because
Mm-hmm.
then it's kind of like the reason why I say is that, can we ever expect a bad ending, right? Can we ever expect where this timeline is, fucked?
Yeah.
And I guess, going down, as the season goes on or the series goes on, maybe we'll get more and more, information about this, because maybe it has nothing to do with the sacred timeline. Like, a timeline can go to hell, but it doesn't matter, right? Because there's a sacred timeline. So, and that's kind of what you know is what I don't like. And I think it's cool as a gag. It's funny. Oh, we got a bunch of Infinity Stones in here, and it's in our desk and whatever. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, okay, so is there really no importance? Because this universe could be fucked, but who's to say universe B or universe C is fine, right?
Yeah.
Thanos died. Who
Yeah,
cares,
because
right?
like there could be a thing where like the alternate timelines where Thanos doesn't destroy the stones, and Thanos, uh, decides to keep
Forget his
them, and
rulings or
then
something,
they show up and they capture Thanos and stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
interesting, but it's also like it definitely weighs upon how deeply you want to take it, in the
Right,
sense of
right,
like, is
right.
it gonna affect you with how you felt during Endgame? And I feel like I'm at the point now where, yes, they're moving towards a new phase, so like we can hold on to how we felt in those older movies, but we definitely know that things are gonna be more things are gonna be revealed to us as we learn more about the world, and
Right.
all that stuff. Josh M in this chat says, um, I think we'll get into that at the end of the discussion. But he says Loki was never supposed to escape, and this is supposed to set up Kane the Conqueror for Ant-Man 3. Um, so the TVA will have more of a role in the MCU as they move through Phase 4 and 5. Yeah, see, it's kind of how I felt with the Guardian movies, where we know the Nova Corps is out there, but they didn't really have any sort of like deep sort
The
of,
only thing I know about those is they got destroyed by Thanos.
yeah.
That's how he got the power stone.
Yeah, and so
So, like,
they don't have any like deep sort of like moments throughout the MCU, at least so far. They could be having an even bigger role as we move forward. Especially I know it's Nova Corps isn't exactly, but the opposing that one race of people that were all golden. They had that one teaser at the end of the movie where
Adam Warlock.
Adam
Yeah.
Warlock was supposed to be introduced. So it's a lot of things like that where it's just like, as we move through the phases of the Marvel universe, we'll be able to see other things shine that didn't shine in the beginning, like earlier.
Yeah.
But to get back on track with the episode, so we do get this really. This is where it kind of sold me on Owen Wilson's character. He he has a one-on-one interview with Loki. He stops Loki from getting reset in the judge's room. And it seems like he has a connection to this judge character, because he goes up and he's like, "Oh, it's like I'm always looking up to you. I love it. Like it feels right." And she kind of gives him this look like, "Oh, you're being, your little playful self." And so he ends up taking Loki, and he's saying like, he's giving him the rundown, just saying like, this is where time is, and we guard the sacred timeline. And Loki's just laughing and saying, "You guys are putting on a show. This is an illusion. There's no way you guys have all this power. Like, you and your dumb team, think you have all this stuff." And then Owen Wilson standing there is like, "Yeah, we do. Like, we actually do." And so they have a really, really nice set of moments in this interview section where we kind of like, it's one of those things where I've always loved, like I didn't really like the last Star Wars movie. Um, what's it called? Is the Force Awakens the last one, or no, it's not Force
The
Awakens.
last one was
The
Jedi, the Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. I don't love the movie, but something that I really found interesting was the moments where Rey and Kylo Ren were talking to each other, but not fighting. And that's something that we don't really get a lot in these forms of media where the villain actually talks without there being like an immediate danger. Like, oh, there's a bomb about to go off. I'm gonna talk to you for a little bit, but you gotta go. You gotta hurry. Or
Right.
I'm about to kill your friend, and I
Right.
have your friend up with a knife, and you better make a decision now, and you can talk to me, but nothing's gonna change. So I love when we get moments where you can actually talk to a villain and pick his brain, and so we something that we gotta establish and make clear here is that Loki in this series isn't the Loki that we know from at the end of Endgame. This was a Loki that was hell bent on taking over Earth. He brought Thanos' like alien army and stuff like that with him, and so he doesn't have the same compassion or the same growth that he had from where we knew him. And so if we were to ever pick Loki's brain on where he was mentally in the first Avengers movie, this is the best time. And so I love this scene where they have this back and forth, and he's just like, why? He's like, so Loki, you have control and you get what you want. Then what? And he's just like, oh, I rule, Midgard. And he's like, okay, so Earth. Okay, so you're ruling Midgard. Now what? And he's just like, well, I reclaim my throne and I rule over the 9 realms. And he's just like, oh, so space. He's like, so you're gonna control space, and it's a big place. And Loki, and he's kind of just testing him. He's kind of just saying like, okay, you have all these dreams and like what you want to do, and you want to get to this point where you're in complete power. But for what? Like, what's making Loki tick? And it was a great scene. I thought it was a good moment to show like a character that reflects on why and how and what he does and why he does what he does. And I don't know. I really enjoyed that little segment of it. What'd you think?
Well, yeah, I think if we're gonna go into like the deeper meaning of this conversation, I think what it's meant to do is kind of speed up this Loki to the Loki we knew.
Yeah.
Right at the end of Endgame. Like
Yeah, I was a
basically,
big fan of that.
Owen Wilson is kind of like saying, "Hey, get to the end already, right? Like, why do you want to do this? Why? Because at the end of the day, you're gonna end up, helping your brother. You're gonna end up understanding that that's not really who you want. That what you really want is to, protect and whatever, right? Maybe not be a hero, but understand what he does. And I really love this line that Loki says. He says that people that he first calls out to TVA saying, "Oh, this is just an illusion of the weak, a desperate play to control power, right? To control, right? Like a desperate power move to control is to create an illusion, right? That's what illusions are there for, to fake, right?" And it's just crazy how he says that to TVA, but he's really saying it, or he ends up understanding that he's really saying it to himself.
Mm-hmm.
That he's the one that creates illusion because he's weak.
Yeah.
And that's the only way he can gain control. I really like that part of the lines of that whole conversation that they're having. And Loki's kind of struggling to understand that, like, because Mobius shows him a clip of him, but past the timeline, right? Because this Loki only knows, oh, what I lost the Avengers.
Yeah.
And randomly the Tesseract came into my hands and I just left.
Yeah.
So that's all he knows. He doesn't know anything else. He doesn't, like, for all he knows, that's all. That's his timeline. And then this guy's showing Loki sending dark elves to his mom.
Yeah.
And he keeps, Mobius keeps telling him or asking him, like, do you enjoy hurting people? Like, do you enjoy it? Do you like it? Because that's the path you've been showing.
Mhm.
And he shows them a lot of clips from like the Avengers of him, killing Coulson, gouging the eyes of this human, and he's smiling, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, Loki is trying to, I think Loki at first, he says, like, yeah, I liked it. I needed to do it. It's all part of the like, it's kind of like something that was needed, right, for him to get to godhood or kingdom, to be a king, to rule over them. But towards the end, he starts to say, you know what? No, like, I don't want to do it. I have to do it, right? Because I'm creating an illusion, right, to control, to gain that control.
Yeah.
So I really like that part of the show, for sure.
Yeah, so we do get like, so while that whole interview process is kind of like its own thing, if you look at it as a whole, it does get broken up because Loki gets a little angry and he's kind of getting fed up with these questions, and so he tries attacking Owen Wilson's character, and
He has his collar on.
he has his collar on, so Owen Wilson just basically reverts time, puts him back in this spot, and he walks over and he's like, "Come on, like, get up, like we still got more to talk about." And so he helps Loki get up, and then he gets called away by that one security personnel woman.
Yeah, there's a situation. Yeah,
That one
sure.
woman, she says there's a situation. She pulls him aside. They're having their discussion, and I called it as we were watching the episode. Me and Brawley, I was just like, I bet you anything, Loki fucking stole something as soon as he picked him up. And sure enough, Loki was able to get the little time turner device and sent himself back further to where he first arrived in the complex. And he meets a character named Casey, who was the man behind the desk who took the Tesseract from the beginning. And this is where we get like a big moment because, well, first Loki says, what's your name? And he's like, Casey. And then Loki like kind of hypes himself up and he's like, well, I'm gonna gut you like a fish if you don't tell me where the blue square you took is. And he's just like, Casey's sitting there and he's like, what's a fish? And he's just like, what do how do you not know what a fish is? And he's just like, oh, I lived my whole life behind this desk, like I don't know. And so like it's a funny moment, but it's also, again, these people were made and created to live their life as these workers for this for the sacred timeline. So it really kind of shows how they are, just living to a certain degree of dedication for all this shit. So anyways, he ends up opening the drawer where the Tesseract is at, and Loki picks it up and he's like, yes, and he like holds on to it. But then he looks in the drawer, and at first I didn't realize it. Like, at first I thought he maybe saw like a locket or like a certain emblem or something that was related to his mom or something. That was my first thought. But then I see all the different colored stones, and I saw some of the same color, so it didn't hit me that, oh, these could be Infinity Stones. But then but then Loki says it. He's like, these are Infinity Stones, and I'm like, I was like, wait, what? And sure enough, there's like multiple of like green, and like there's all this other stuff, and Loki's just holding them, and he's just like, he realizes that even the Infinity Stone, these like amazingly powerful, like, time bending and reality warping stones, don't mean shit in this place. And the guy Casey's even goes on to say, yeah, some of us have them as paperweights, and blah blah blah. And I can kind of think like, well, these whatever stones in this place, like Black Widow died for this shit, so it's kind of like it's a little, it's just, it's so crazy to think about. And then what's even crazier is later on he's looking, and you sort of have this realization in the character. Loki's looking at the screen and he's looking at everything, and he's just like, this is absolute power. Like, where they're at now, this is the control of everything. And but then the guard once again shows up, and she goes for a swing, and he reverts time to get him back into the room, and she ends up swinging and hitting that drawer full of Infinity Stones, and they're gone. They're disintegrated.
They're just disintegrated.
And see, so that's what I'm saying. I think there's a difference between resetting somebody and then like purging somebody. And I think that because he even says like, "Oh, you almost got me," and Casey, that is, he says he almost got me. So
I treat it as the same thing, like resetting their matter, right, or whatever, disintegrating them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and so yeah, the Infinity Stones, they just get like disintegrated basically. And
Yeah.
Loki is back in the room where he was getting interviewed. He doesn't have the collar on anymore. And Mobius comes in, and he's there with the little baton, the time resetting purging
Well,
wand.
this is yeah, but you're forgetting one part
What was that?
that he gets to see his whole timeline.
Oh
Like he's
yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there.
Loki's there and he's watching, and it's like pretty much a TLDR of like
It's
the
like a
good
machine
moment.
that shows memories, right? Or
Yeah,
like basically a projection.
yeah. It's
So
a
you always see
projection
these
of
weird.
everything that could be,
I
or
always
everything
thought they
that
were
happened.
weird.
Huh?
I always thought they were weird. Like it seemed like they were like holograms. Like basically like a scene like, oh, okay, you see Loki saying, oh, I would like that drink now, right?
Yeah.
But it's just kinda like the audio, I don't know, it's weird. Like if they were like in an auditorium or something, or they
Mm-hmm.
basically like green screened everything out and just had the character and stuff, and it just like, I don't know, it just looked weird to me.
I don't know. I
uh
didn't feel that.
Kinda weird. It just like, you could tell, like when Coulson died,
Uh huh.
like you can tell that the scene was like very different, or like
Yeah.
the angle was very weird. You could
Uh-huh.
like, it pops out. That's what I mean. Like it doesn't
Yeah, well,
sound.
yeah, it definitely it looked like they chroma keyed the background to where
Mhm,
it just insinuated, like it sort of like highlighted the characters only. It didn't see anything else.
mhm,
So
yeah.
yeah, it was just more of like a projection, sort of like uh, stylized way of showing these scenes. But yeah, we get a breakdown, and Loki's going through them. And well, one thing about Coulson is that there's a lot of talk about the MCU canon and then Agents of Shield and stuff like that. And so it looks like, yeah, Coulson is dead, and Agents of Shield was his own thing. Um, so I mean, it could change. Maybe they do something with him in the future. But yeah, Agents of Shield. I'm guessing it's its own thing. Um, but yeah, we get little bits of whenever um, Loki's dad passes on. Odin is saying like "I love you, sons" and all that stuff, and then he sees the talks with his mother. He sees his mother's dead again, and then he sees when him and Thor were fighting side by side, and when Thor gives him these like kind words of like "Oh, you did great, brother. I knew you could," and so that was I even said it out loud when I was watching the show with Broly. I said I was like that was something that I kind of wanted, was that the Loki that we knew isn't here anymore. And so to get that back, we kind of needed a scene like this where he realizes things. He gets sort of moments and things that he never had in his life, and that he had always questioned if it was, if it was true or not. So there's a little bit of a realization, as Josh here in the chat says. Um, this is the best version of Loki. It's like Owen Wilson tricked him to realize what he becomes, and with a little help of his curiosity. Yeah, exactly. So it plays out in the way where Loki realizes that there's more to this and more to him than what he originally thought. And then what was crazy, what was super cool, was that we actually do end up Loki gets to see himself die to Thanos as well. We do get that scene at the end where he sees himself, and he stands up, and he's kind of like shocked but angry and like everything all at once. And then yeah, that's when Owen, huh?
He gets a touching moment. He gets to see that his mom loved him, that his dad loved him, that his brother loves him.
Yeah,
And because he has to understand, Loki is an orphan. This is Loki feels his the root of his anger and his want to rebel and to take over is basically because he feels he doesn't belong with them. That
yeah, because
that that his
he's a
dad took him
cross
away,
guy,
right?
cross guy,
Right.
whatever.
He's a yeah, Laufeyson. He's not an Asgardian. He's not Odin's son, right? He's Laufeyson. And so, for him to get this kind of moment where he looks and he sees Thor kind of acknowledge him and says like, I really don't think you're that bad of a guy, and Loki kind of says it in the future timeline, like, yeah, like I don't think I am either. It gives him that thing. That's the whole fast forward. All right, let's get you back up to date to
Yeah.
what that Loki was,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Oh,
So yeah, like I said, that was probably the highlight of the episode, was that whole realization for Loki, and then also just the talking with the Mobius guy. And so yeah, so it's this episode is very confined, and it's very, a controlled episode. But towards the end of it, we do get, we of course we get our cliffhanger ending that also leads to us wanting more. But we get a really, really cool segue into where we're going by Loki asking the question. So, what do you want from me? You want, Loki, god of mischief, to help you stop some variant guy? And then Mobius says, "Yeah, we do actually, and we need him. We need you to stop yourself." And we find out that we don't get a reveal. We have a cloaked figure, but we are believed to assume that that is a different timeline Loki, doing his own thing. And what did you think about that?
um, I was kind of shocked. I was trying to figure out, okay, what timeline was this, because we knew of two, and I brought up that maybe this is the Loki from the Captain America timeline where he goes back.
Mm-hmm. I actually want to ask this too, Josh, since you're the one here in the chat at the moment. If you have any idea of where this third Loki could come from, please feel free to.
We know one's dead.
Yeah,
We know
so we know. I believe it was in Thor 1, right, where Loki falls off the bridge. We know that
Yes.
Loki ends up living and continues on.
That's when Avengers 1 happens, because
Yeah.
he goes takes over the scientists.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
And then we have so that Loki continues on, and then we have this Loki, the one that branched away from the timeline that is in this show. But this third Loki, could he be maybe when Captain America went back again after the end of Endgame, or could he be? I'm trying to think of what spots in the timeline could there be where it'd be a different Loki doing different shit.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure, because I don't know, because they do go into different timelines, right? There's a 2014 one, right, where they go and do I think it's War Machine and what's her face, Nebula, goes and gets the Power Stone away from Star-Lord, because they see him. They're like, oh, okay.
The only thing that I can think of, and this is, again, like I said at the beginning of our discussion, as we move into more phases and we get into more intricate parts of the MCU, I'm a little bit more out of my depth, and I can only rely on what I've, played in video games and what I've seen other people talk about in the past. But there's something that I remember. I used to play a lot of Marvel Heroes Omega, and it used to be called like Marvel Heroes 2015 or whatever the hell. But there is a Lady Loki, and that this could be Lady Loki. It could be a different timeline, and or a different way of introducing Lady Loki.
Yeah, people were thinking about it too hard, because like they got all these Infinity Stones. Why? Why are we led to believe these are the only timelines that a Loki could exist? There could be other Lokis, right? So there could be a female Loki for sure.
Mm-hmm. Josh says, my theory is that Loki broke the timeline when he was escaping, creating the multiverse, since the timeline isn't flowing as one. So you think like him leaving with the Tesseract could have branched in two different ways, and we're seeing one way, and that the other one could be a different one? I feel like that there's never a way to completely say no to something like that, but I feel like this variant that Owen Wilson character has been dealing with has been around a lot longer than Loki showing up now, and so I think it probably has happened before Loki even took the Tesseract. So I'm leaning more so I personally am leaning and betting on that this maybe being a Lady Loki, but
Yeah, because I think if there was a disturbance on the timeline, TVA would know about it, right? And just kind of like shut that shit down or whatever, right? Because if it's messed up, right? I don't think it's messed up yet. I think we're getting to the point, but I don't think it's messed up just yet.
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
But yeah, that was basically the ending of the episode, and that plays into I guess more that we're gonna. I guess we can go over the last scene. The very last scene that we get is it's a cloaked figure in the year of like 1875 or something like that. Do you remember the exact year?
I didn't see the year date.
Yeah, there was a subtitle that says they were in Oklahoma in like 18 something,
Okay.
and basically the time patrol or whatever you want to call them, the TVA, they show up, and they find a bunch of oil in 1984. Says Josh. We find it's just like a field and it's full of oil, and they're patrolling, and there's this weird like it looked like the freaking Monado. It was like a scepter that was in the ground, but it had like a circular ring that was like its own thing inside the circle in the middle of it. And so they're just like, oh, it's too much paperwork to deal with what the hell this is. Let's just reset it. But then someone spots the cloaked figure out in the distance, and they pull up a little lantern. And then they drop it, and it causes a huge fire in the oil, and then almost instantly these TVA agents are all caught on fire and like getting wrecked. And then we have that one agent, and I believe that one agent was the one that was with Mobius earlier. That he had a beard and he was like, I do speak French, asshole. I think it was the same guy.
It looked like the same guy, yeah.
Yeah, he was like crawling away, trying to reach one of those vials, the reset vials that they put on the ground in the beginning of the episode. But he gets dragged back, and then the quote-unquote Loki character, they pick it up, and then that's the end of the episode. So very interesting. It definitely the show feels like it's molding into exactly what I thought it was gonna be, and it was gonna be sort of like a time heist, time sort of like mystery adventure with Loki, and yeah, I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. I'm excited to see how Loki as a character grows, and where he fits into this. Because something that I always wonder whenever these shows come out, like WandaVision and Falcon the Winter Soldier, I'm always interested to see what are they going to do with these characters to make them fit into the Marvel Universe moving forward. You know, like, and obviously with Sam and Bucky, like, they got the resolution, and to an extent, Bucky really doesn't have a place yet. He's Sergeant Barnes now, but he's not like. Really,
I mean, I think he's gonna be Sam's sidekick. You know, that's how I see it.
It's either he's gonna be Sam's sidekick, or he moves on to be, like, I really want him to be either the head of Shield, or I want him to go to space and take over
down the line. But yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I want him to go to space and be where Nick Fury's at and take over that, and Nick Fury come back down to Earth. That's what I want. But
I think that'll be in Captain America 4. I think we'll get that kind of answer then.
Yeah.
Not before, not in any other thing, but I think when that movie hits, we'll get more Bucky and we'll get an answer.
Yeah.
Or some direction, right? Some direction to where Bucky could go.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm excited to see where they're gonna place Loki, because while Loki can sit there and say like, oh, I put on this illusion to install, you know, fear for the weak and all that stuff. While he says that and he openly admits that, you just never know with Loki. You never know him sitting there and talking to Mobius like that could lead, you know, because when he looks at the control panel, he's like, this is absolute power, this is control. Like, he has his end goal in his mind, and he wants to be at the top. But then he wants, you know, him admitting his true feelings could also be a tool to manipulate. And it's like, that's what's so
wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. I thought this was So my thoughts on the episode was I thought it was okay. I thought it was good. I don't know if it was better. I think it was better than WandaVision's pilot, but I don't think it was better than Winter Soldier's pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like in the middle right there because I thought it was good, but I also felt like it was, like what I feel like what I mean, the series is called Loki. So basically, he's the main star. He's the one we're all watching. He's gonna carry the star. If it goes the right direction, if he has a lot of moments and stuff like that, the episode will be good. If
Yeah.
he doesn't have a lot of moments, or if he's kind of and I understood this is kind of like again a catch up episode. This is an episode that kind of catches up everybody. All right, guys, we saw Endgame. Remember in Avengers 2012. Let's get this Loki into kind of like that, so we don't have this two different Lokis, even though there's still gonna be elements of it.
Yeah.
I didn't like. I don't know. When I looked at the trailers, and obviously, they're not a guarantee of what the series is gonna show.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought this was gonna be one of those that like he's on the run the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing all these kind of charades because he's the mischief guy, and he's doing all this, plans and schemes, and then have his breakdown. I felt like his breakdown was a little too soon. I just thought like, why does he have to admit that he's weak? Why does he have to do like, okay, I get what you're saying, and yes, you're 100% right. Like, this could be all a facade. This
Yeah.
could be him just faking it. This could be him just trying to manipulate Mobius, blah blah blah, to get on their good side, whatever, right? And I get that. I don't know. I felt it's kind of like, okay, where is this gonna go now? Because obviously they're gonna go catch this person, but I don't know. I mean, it's
Only time will tell.
only time will tell.
Time. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess that basically wraps up what we feel. Yeah. Josh kind of like nails it there. He says it's Loki. Nothing appears as Loki. Yeah. And that's what's so interesting about the character, and that's what makes him fun to watch. Is that you just never know where it's gonna do, or how he's thinking, or how he's gonna act, and you do get these like small sentimental moments with him, but overall, um, you just never truly know. And so, and I think I definitely applaud Marvel because they do it in a way that's not obvious. It's not like, oh, I'm being tricky and conniving, and you gotta always believe me that I'm not telling the truth. Um, uh, or you gotta always question me because Loki kind of knows when to tell the truth or when to use it to his advantage, and that's what it just makes him fun. It makes him really interesting. Um, but yeah, I guess that's it for us today on the discussion. What we like doing here is, even though it's really hard to judge a series as a whole, especially on the first episode, it's not really fair to give it a rating because you don't really have all the pieces of the puzzle yet. So there might be some things in this episode that were like, oh, I didn't really like that, but then later on in episode 5, they kind of clear it up better. You know what I mean? So
it's just a first impressions, right?
yeah, it's just a first impressions rating. So yeah, so for me, I want to give it like a solid 8. It really gave me excitement for what's to come. It was a lot of world building, a lot of plot placements, I guess, for what to expect or where we're gonna go with it all. And yeah, I really enjoyed the Loki character, and it gets me excited for next week. That's for sure. So I'm gonna give it like an 8 for this episode.
Pretty damn high. I'm gonna give it a 6.
A 6. Brawley gives it a 6. I'm giving it an 8. I believe. Don't quote me on this. I don't know if I'm right, because Josh is asking me on how many episodes is in the series. I believe it's 6. I believe it's 6 episodes.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's just like Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it's only 6. Could be wrong, but I believe it's that many.
Okay. I mean, okay. So it kind of,
So how does that work? Is there overlap with the Because Black Widow movie's on July 9th. So that's gonna pass Black Widow.
Well, you gotta remember, I think Black Widow was supposed to come out before these shows even came out.
Yeah, true.
So I don't know if this is gonna have anything to do with them. Maybe what they filmed for the secret ending or whatever might be something, but I don't know. That movie's gonna be very. I don't know. I don't know. I'm excited to see Black Widow. Obviously, I love Black Widow.
Yeah.
I felt like she's very integral to the story, and she has her, hey, she died kind of thing. They kind of like say it in the trailers. They kind of like show like, oh,
They
this
show
was
that
my
moment,
life.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Um, but who knows? We all
Well,
have our.
Josh, I've been having this long, very, very long going theory that at the end of the Black Widow movie, that the teaser ending scene is going to be her waking up on Vormir. And that when Hulk snaps, he actually did bring her back. Because we get that line in Endgame where the Hulk is talking to, I think, Captain America, and he's saying, like, I really tried to bring her back. Like, I really tried. And so we don't know. Infinity Stones are all powerful.
If he really tried and he's saying no, like, but he couldn't, then why would you think like?
Because no one's on
like,
Vormir. Like no one's there. No one knows how to bring her back. Like Tony Stark was flying in space with Nebula. They didn't know how to get to him until they got.
But there's people that died in other spots. There's like, look at people that died on fucking what's the fucking world's name that Thanos lived on?
Titan.
I guess it's Titan, right? Is it Titan?
I think it's Titan.
But like, yeah, like people died over there.
And they came back.
Yeah, okay. So, but you don't know where that place is, right? It's fucking. Look how long it took Tony Stark to come back to Earth.
No, but what I'm saying is Doctor Strange brought him back. Like you can, it doesn't matter where they're at.
What I'm saying is that when Hulk did the snap, he kind of already knew, hey, I brought everybody back. So he tried really hard to bring Natasha
the
back.
thing is, he didn't really know he brought everybody back because we get the confirmation through Hawkeye and through Ant-Man. Hawkeye gets the phone call, and then what do you call it? Ant-Man's looking out, and he's seeing like more of the nature come back, and he's just like, oh yeah, like guys, I think we did it. So it's like there's no certainty until then.
But I don't know, because then you could just be like, well, maybe Natasha's trying to get her way back here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The Black Widow movie, there has to be a reason why the Black Widow movie's happening now, and I'm pretty sure it's leading up to more stuff. And
okay, well, my theory is people have been clamoring for a female lead movie, like Captain Marvel, sure, but they've been kind of saying, Black Widow deserves a movie,
Well, I mean, Hawkeye's getting another thing too, right? So, but Hawkeye's getting his own Disney Plus series, so.
I don't know. He got his Marvel, Avengers, Sony, Square Enix, and nobody really cares.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's what I think about what's going on with Black Widow, but overall, yeah, Loki show. I'm excited for it, and just to let you guys know again, I do stream this on Twitch. I'm posting this on YouTube, but I do stream this at twitch.tv/Vash. We stream this as soon as the episode airs. We watch it, and then we start discussing it right after. So we'll be doing this.
We'll see if we get gossip.
Yeah, hopefully we get God. We usually have a third person. But yeah, we'll be discussing this every Tuesday night. Yeah, Tuesday nights leading into early Wednesday morning. Yeah, but again, thank you again, Broly, for hanging out with me and talking about Marvel stuff with me. And thank you for you hanging out in the chat, Josh, and everybody else. If you're lurking or if you didn't get to make it this time, definitely swing by next time. We'll do it next week. But until then, we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.